Let's start. Hello everyone, my name is Jiho and I'm here today to talk about anger. Have you ever used your anger as a tool to express your opinions to others? Well, it might sound kind of mean or not right to use your anger for your goal, but at least I have done this before, and for me, it worked out really well. It wasn't something simply not right. So I would like to first introduce one of my experiences of using my anger. Next slide, please. So I have two older sisters, and my mom was a really strict parent. So when us three were really little, the biggest task for us was to avoid our mom's scolding. And I grew up watching how my sisters dealt with my mom, and since I was the youngest, I had a chance to watch whose method worked better. My older sister's name is Claire, and she has a somewhat active and aggressive personality. And in contrast, the other sister, Julia, is quiet and gentle. Mom seemed to think of Julia as an easy person. Well, of course, Mom did love her, but she kind of thought that she needed to sacrifice more in relationships. And for Claire, she was always easygoing. Whenever Claire was mistreated or when things were unfair for her, Claire became really angry, and that made Mom to change her own attitude towards Claire. I eventually chose to become like Claire, to use my anger, and I could successfully avoid Mom's excessive nagging. So, next slide please. So this example quite shows how anger might work, very briefly, and so now I'd like to move on to more detail and explain about using my anger. So anger is an emotion that cannot be really repressed, and it's not something that should be repressed all the time too. The first one is quite obvious because anger has been a part of us for a very long time, and it has been working as an inherent weapon for human beings. So it's simply not simply something that we can separate from us. And for the second one, that anger is not something that must be suppressed all the time, there are several reasons why. First of all, there are situations where anger is actually appropriate. For example, in situations of mistreatment or when particular values or rights are violated, anger can work as a very good tool. Anger can give you other people's attention, and people might start to listen to the things that they have been ignoring. And second, there's research on how bad it is to swallow your anger. According to University of Jena, the strain of suppressing negative emotions can have serious repercussions on both physical and mental health. Slide, please. There are scientifically a lot of positive effects of using anger. For example, brain scans show that people use their prefrontal cortex whenever they get angry, and the prefrontal cortex is responsible for the rational and systematic approach to particular goals. So in short, anger can act as a catalyst to approach a particular goal. Now, it's quite sure that anger has a lot of positive aspects, and it cannot be perfectly repressed after all. And so if we can't ignore anger, what are we going to do with it? Perhaps the most ideal and best way would be to use it in the right way and in the effective way. And I thought that the feminism movement of the 1900s would be a very good example of this. So in the 1900s in England, women set fire to buildings and broke windows of the stores and hung themselves at the Buckingham Palace to fight for their rights. And the most famous case occurred in 1913. The Derby, the most prestigious horse race in England, was being held in London, and following the long tradition, the horse of the king also took part. And when the horses were right before the finish line, a woman suddenly threw herself in front of the horses, shouting out, "Voting rights to women." Now, what I want to focus on is not feminism itself, but I want to see if this anger was effective or not. And in fact, it was. The previously ignored, quite peaceful opinions on women's rights started gaining attention, and this day's tragedy brought public support to the feminists and roused the feminists all across England. And finally, in 1918, the British woman could obtain the right to vote. So anger is powerful. But now we can't just overlook the possible drawbacks of using anger. For example, for the example that I first introduced in the beginning, well, I did get a better treatment from my mother, but the problem is I faced a major change in my personality. I became easily irritated, And the more I faked my anger only to use it as an attention grabber, the more I became really angry on really trivial and small things. And for that feminism example, backlash feminism is a consequence of the anger in feminism today. Well, of course, there are a lot of people who are simply against feminism for no reason, but a lot of people are also against some feminists who express too much anger to random men. Expressing bare anger cannot be the actual or long-term solution because anger is obviously an irrational emotion that is closer to instinct than reason. However, it's still true that anger can give you other people's attention and also give you the passion. So you can use this as an opportunity to voice your thoughts and logically resolve the fundamental source of the anger in the end. So don't just always be afraid of using the anger, but be ready to use it when it's needed. Thank you.